Captain Elias Rain lived alone on a quiet space station called Halcyon 7. It floated in the outer rim of human space, far away from any busy trade routes or political centers. The station was old, dusty, and peaceful, just how Elias liked it. He had been a war hero once, but those days were long gone. Every morning, Elias drank his bitter black tea while watching the stars outside his window. He liked the silence. Silence didn't ask questions. Silence didn't bring back memories of the war with the Jurari, empire the war he had helped end 2 decades ago. People still remembered his name. Some called him a savior, others a butcher. Elias didn't argue with either side. He'd done terrible things, smart things, necessary things, but things that haunted him all the same. Then one day, everything changed. The station's alarm buzzed a signal that hadn't sounded in years. A ship was approaching. No traffic ever came this far. Elias checked the scanners, and his blood ran cold. It was a Jurari warship. He stared at the screen, waiting for weapons to activate, but nothing happened. No energy readings. No shield charge. Just a slow, steady approach. Elias opened the comms. Unidentified Jurari vessel. This is Captain Elias Rain. You are entering restricted human territory. State your purpose. Silence. Then a voice replied, clear, firm, and strangely. Calm. I am Princess Kiara of the Jurari High Line. I come unarmed. I seek the human called Elias Rain. Elias stared at the screen. A Jurari princess. Here. 10 minutes later, the docking bay doors opened with a soft hiss. Elias stood tall, wearing a plain gray flight suit. He hadn't worn a uniform in years, but he kept his back straight. Old habits die hard. From the shadows of the warship, she appeared. She was tall over 6 feet and wore lightweight armor that shimmered like quicksilver. Her skin was a deep bronze with traces of violet across her cheeks. Her eyes, glowing faintly purple, met his with a calm, sharp gaze. But it was her voice that caught him off guard. Low, clear, and full of quiet purpose. She stepped closer and leaned in slightly. My father always used to talk about you. Elias froze. The name came to him like a ghost from the past. Varsith. He said slowly, your father is the supreme general of the Jurari Empire. She nodded. Your enemy. He didn't reply. Not today, she added. Today, I come for your help. They sat in the station's small command room. Elias poured her tea without asking. She accepted it without comment. I thought the war was over, he said. It was, Kira replied. But peace is not. The same as safety. She explained that after the war ended, the Jurari Empire struggled to hold itself together. Factions began forming. Some believed her father had betrayed Jurari pride by surrendering. Others wanted revenge against humanity. The most dangerous of these groups now called themselves the Crimson Accord. They are growing fast, she said. They seek to restore Jurari dominance through war. Elias shook his head. Let them try. Humanity isn't weak. Kira looked at him sharply. I'm not warning you. I'm asking for your help. I want to stop them before they start. Another war my father left behind. Pieces. Secrets. And he believed only you could understand them. Elias frowned. Why would he think that? She stared at her tea, then back at him. Because you changed him. Years ago, during the war, Elias and Varzeth had faced each other many times in battle. Oh. They were equals, one human, one alien matched in intelligence and ruthlessness. But something changed in the last year of the war. Varsith stopped pushing for total destruction. He began ordering retreats, making strange decisions that confused even his own commanders. Most thought he was going soft, Kiara said. But I think he saw something in humanity, something that frightened him. Elias stayed silent. My father spoke of you often before he died, she continued. He said you were a paradox, predator with a soul. That sounds like him, Elias muttered. Always speaking in riddles. She stood up suddenly. I can take you to his private vault. It's hidden beneath the military palace on Jurari Prime. I need you to help me open it. He locked it with human algorithms. Only you can break them. Elias raised an eyebrow. He used human code. Kira nodded. He didn't trust our own. He believed the Empire had become infected. Elias exhaled slowly and looked out the window. The stars had not changed, but maybe the war wasn't over after all. Later, as Kyra slept in the guest quarters, Elias stood alone in the control room. He pulled up old files from the war battle reports, intercepted Jirari messages, even recordings of Varzeth's broadcasts. For a moment, he let himself remember. The general had been brutal, brilliant, and terrifying. But in his final days, there had been a flicker of something else. A hesitation. Mercy, even. Was it because of Elias? Or because of what Elias represented? Humanity had always fought harder when backed into a corner. They adapted, changed, survived. But they also forgave, built bridges, sought peace even after bloodshed. Maybe Varzeth had seen that. Maybe that's why he had spared Earth from full invasion, even when he could have won. Maybe that's why he trusted his daughter to seek Elias out. In the morning, Elias found Kiara in the station's garden module, studying a blooming Terran. "Orchid, my people think you're a war criminal," she said. "I probably am," he replied. She looked at him. "So am I. I led strikes against rebel colonies. We all carry blood." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Elias spoke. "If we do this, go to Jera, prime your own people might see it as betrayal." "They already do," she said, calmly. "But I won't let the Empire fall into the hands of extremists. My father tried to change it from within. Now it's my turn." Elias gave a bitter smile. "You sound like him." She returned it. "So do you." Before leaving the station, Elias opened his locker, something he hadn't done in years. Inside was a single item, his old uniform badge. Not a symbol of pride, but a reminder of what he had been willing to become. He didn't put it on, but he kept it in his pocket. They boarded her ship together. No guards, no soldiers. Just two people carrying the legacy of enemies and the burden of peace. As the engines roared to life, Elias glanced at the stars again. "Let's see what your father left behind." And the ship disappeared into the void. The ship moved through deep space quietly, but Elias Rain's mind was loud with memories. He stood at the front window of the Garari cruiser, watching stars pass by in slow motion. Kiara sat behind him. Going through data on a glowing blue screen, the ship's systems made soft beeping noises, steady and calm. But Elias could feel tension in the air. He was heading toward the homeworld of his old enemies. He had ended a war there. Now he was returning as a guest. Or maybe a target. "Why? Didn't you bring guards?" Elias asked without turning around. "I don't trust them," Kiara said. "The Crimson Accord has eyes everywhere, even in the palace." Elias finally looked at her.
"Also, this is a suicide mission?"
She smiled. "Faintly, only if we fail." The ship's lights dimmed as it entered stealth mode. Kyra activated the cloaking field, a new upgrade since the war. Elias admired the engineering. "The Jirari were always fast learners. We'll arrive at Jirari Prime in 12 hours, she said. "We'll land in the lower city and take a secure transport to the palace tunnels. You think no one will notice a human walking around?" She tapped a panel on the wall. A hidden compartment opened, revealing a sleek black suit and helmet. "Disguise," she said. "Will hide your features and block your scent." "My scent?" "The Crimson Accord trains hunter elites. They're not easy to fool." Elias sighed and looked at the suit. "Sounds like a good way to get shot." She smiled again. "Only if you don't keep up." 12 hours later, the ship entered the atmosphere of Garari Prime. Elias watched through a small screen as the clouds parted. The planet was beautiful. From above, purple oceans, green mountains, glowing cities. But Elias remembered the war. He remembered orbital fires and burning ships. They landed in a quiet industrial zone outside the capital. No guards, no welcome, just shadows and old metal buildings. Kyra led him into a narrow alley where a small transport vehicle waited, cloaked in dust. An old Jirari driver nodded at her, but didn't speak. "He's loyal to my father," she explained. "We'll use the underground roads. No scanners down there." As the transport began moving through dark tunnels, Elias kept one hand near the pulse pistol hidden under his suit. The helmet screen showed tunnel maps and warning signs in Jirari script. Couldn't read it, but Kira could. She sat beside him, tense but focused. "You're sure this vault of your father's is still untouched?" Elias asked. "It's sealed under genetic and neural code locks. It's only I can open the outer layer and the inner. That's why I need you." Elias studied her face. She looked tired but determined. She had her father's eyes sharp. "Watchful? Hard to read? Why are you doing this?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. "My father died trying to protect something bigger than the Empire," she said at last. "I don't know what it was, but I want to understand. Before someone destroys it." The transport reached the old tunnels beneath the palace. They got out and walked on foot, through ancient halls lit by low red lights. The walls were covered in Jirari carvings, battle scenes, royal family trees, and strange symbols that Elias didn't recognize. At the end of the tunnel was a tall, curved door made of black metal. It had no handle, no panel, just a single crystal embedded in the center. Kyra pressed her hand against the crystal. Soft hum echoed through the corridor. The door slowly opened, revealing a narrow stairway going down. They descended in silence. At the bottom was a large chamber, filled with old machines, locked cabinets, and a glowing blue cube sitting on a pedestal. The cube pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. "This is it," Kiara said. Elias approached slowly. The cube responded to his presence. Lights moved across its surface in a familiar pattern. "It's human tech," he said. "Old Earth encryption mixed with alien enhancements. Clever." He touched the cube. It scanned his fingerprint, then his retina. A moment later, it clicked open, and a metal drawer slid out. Inside was a single silver disc. Elias picked it up. As he held it, the disc projected a hologram of General Varsithka, his father. The voice was calm, deep, and clear. "Ash, ha! If you are seeing this, then the war has ended. And you, Elias Rain, have returned. I hope it means peace has survived." Kira stepped closer. "I saw in you something I never saw in my own people," the hologram continued. "Mercy. Strategy shaped by purpose. I could never admit it during the war, but I respected you. And I feared what you would become if you let rage consume you." Elias looked away. "There is a weapon buried beneath the first capital project Charon, built before the Concord, designed to destroy entire systems. The Crimson Accord is looking for it. If they find it, peace dies." The hologram flickered, then showed an old map coordinates deep under a mountain in the northern continent. "Only you can guide her. She is not like me. She is better. Help her find the truth." The message ended. Silence filled the chamber. Kiara took a step back. "I didn't know any of this." Elias put the disc away. "We need to leave now." It was already too late. An explosion shook the chamber. Dust fell from the ceiling. Alarms began to wail in Jirari's language. "They found us," Kiara shouted. Elias drew his pistol. "Which way out? Follow me." They ran up the stairs as the door behind them began to close. Kira shouted a code into the crystal. The door froze halfway, then reopened just enough for them to slip through. Blaster shots rang out behind them, red energy bolts flying past their heads. 3 armored Jirari soldiers appeared in the tunnel, weapons raised. Elias fired without hesitation. One enemy dropped. Kyoto grabbed a grenade from her belt and threw it down the hall. The explosion shook the ground and filled the air with smoke. They ran. After 10 minutes of sprinting through dark tunnels, they burst into an old storage room. Kira slammed the door and locked it with a heavy bar. They both stood, breathing hard. "That was the Crimson Accord," she said. "They must have followed my ship's trail." "They were waiting," Elias said. "Someone in your staff betrayed you." Kira nodded slowly. "I know who. One of my father's old advisors. Should have seen it." Elias looked at the map coordinates now glowing on his wrist display. "This project, Chiron, we can't let them get to it first." "We won't," she said. "But we'll need help." "From who?" She hesitated. "There's a hidden cell of loyalists. In the outer provinces, soldiers who still follow my father's old teachings. They may listen to me." Elias studied her face again. "You're risking everything for this?" Kyra met his gaze. So are you. He gave a small nod. Then let's finish what your father started. They slipped out of the storage room and vanished into the shadows of Jirari, prime two enemies of war, now running toward a greater one. Elias Rain had been many things in his life, soldier. Captain, strategist, war hero, but he had never been a fugitive on an alien world. Until now, he moved through the narrow underground tunnel behind Kiara, every step careful and silent. The air was damp and smelled like metal and mold. The Jirari princess moved like a shadow, her tall figure lit only by a dim green light strapped to her shoulder. She knew the way. She didn't look back. She trusted he would follow. Elias did. They had just escaped death, barely. Crimson Accord soldiers had attacked the palace vault, and they were lucky to survive. But they didn't have time to rest. The hologram of Varzith, her father and Elias's greatest enemy, revealed something far worse than anyone expected. Project Charon. A planet-killing weapon buried deep beneath the ancient Jirari capital. If the Crimson Accord reached it first, millions, maybe billions would die. Elias and Kyra had to stop them. But first, they needed help. After 3 hours of walking, they reached a small exit built into the side of a canyon wall. It opened with a loud hiss, and sunlight poured. In pale orange light, filtered through the twin suns of Jirari Prime. Elias squinted and stepped out. Before him stretched a wide desert plain filled with broken stone towers, dry wind, and scattered bones. Far in the distance, blue mountains touched the clouds. This was a battlefield, Elias said quietly. Kira nodded. The Battle of Three Suns. My father's final push against the northern colonies. Elias remembered it well. He had watched from orbit, coordinating a last-minute human counterattack. Thousands had died, here both Girari and human allies. Now, only ghosts remained. They climbed into a small, camouflaged hoverbike, hidden behind rocks. It was old, but functional. Kira drove while Elias kept his hand on his pistol. They didn't speak much. The wind was loud and their thoughts louder. After a few hours, they reached the edge of a canyon shaped like a giant scar in the earth. At the bottom was a cluster of tents and steel shelters, hidden among old ruins. Armed guards stood watch. Elias narrowed his eyes. This is your loyalist cell. Kiara parked the bike. Yes, but they won't trust you, Isley. I've been called worse. Inside the camp, tension crackled in the air like static. Dozens of Girari soldiers stared at Elias as he walked beside Kyra. Their hands hovered near their weapons. Some whispered insults. Others spit on the ground. To them, Elias Rain wasn't a guest. He was the butcher of the Eastern Front, the human, who had forced the surrender of the High Command, a monster in the shape of a man. But Kira raised her hand and spoke clearly. He is not your enemy. He is my ally. My father trusted him with our future. The camp fell silent. One soldier stepped forward, an older male with gray scales. Along his arms, and a mechanical eye. If the general trusted him, the soldier said, then so will I. But if he lies, I will burn him myself. Elias gave a small nod. Fair enough. That night, a fire was lit in the center of the camp. The loyalists gathered around, eating dried meat and drinking fermented root tea. Elias sat beside Kiera, watching the flames dance in the wind. The old soldier with the mechanical eye sat across from them. His name was Commander Drelk. Once a proud officer under Varzeth's command. You say the Crimson Accord is after Project Charon, Drelk said. But that project was shut down long ago. It was just a myth. It's real, Elias said, and worse than you think. A general left me the coordinates. Drelk's eye flickered. Then it must be stopped. Kyra leaned forward. We need weapons, transport, and 6 soldiers you trust with your life. You'll have them, Drelk said. But there's one problem. What? Elias asked. The Crimson Accord already sent a strike team toward the old capital. We got a report an hour ago. They're moving fast. Kyra stood quickly. Then we leave now. By dawn, Elias and Kyra were flying again, this time in a stealth dropship borrowed from the Loyalists. 6 elite Garari soldiers joined them, led by Drelk himself. They flew low over sharp mountains, frozen lakes, and long dead cities. Garari. Prime had once been a world of wonders. How much of it was forgotten? Elias stood by the window, watching snow fall below them. The landscape changed from dry deserts to icy peaks. The old capital was located beneath one of the tallest mountains. On the planet Mount Vorik, a sacred place from Jarari legend, buried somewhere under that ice, Elias said, is the most dangerous weapon ever built. Kira stood beside him. Then let's find it before the Crimson Accord does. The ship landed on a snowy plateau just below the mountain's summit. The air was thin and cold. The sky above was dark, filled with gray clouds. Everyone wore insulated armor and face masks. Elias led the way using the coordinates on his wrist. They followed a narrow cave path into the mountain. The deeper they went, the warmer the air became. Old heat vents still worked. Strange symbols lit the walls, old warnings written in a language Elias couldn't read. Then they found it, a large metal door, shaped like an eye, covered in frost. This is it, Kiara whispered. Drelk stepped forward and placed an ancient ID crystal into the lock. It didn't respond. Elias stepped forward and connected his wrist display to the port. The screen blinked. A question appeared in English. Define peace. He stared for a moment, then typed, "When war is no longer necessary." The door clicked. It opened with a deep groan. Inside was a vast chamber filled with tall machines, control, panels, and a massive sphere in the center, floating, humming, glowing blue and red. It was beautiful and deadly. Project Chiron, Elias whispered. Kiara stepped beside him. Can you shut it down? I can try, but we need time. Drelk ordered his soldiers to secure the area. Elias moved to the main console. Ancient human Jarari code filled the screen. His fingers flew across the keys. He wasn't just a soldier. He had been trained to outthink enemies, to break systems, to solve problems others couldn't. But before he could finish, the alarms blared. The Crimson Accord had arrived. Explosions rocked the chamber. Parts of the ceiling fell. Gunfire echoed from the entrance tunnels. Drelk and his team rushed to hold the line. Elias kept typing. Kira drew her energy blade and stood by the console. Keep working. I'll protect you. Dozens of Crimson Accord soldiers burst through. The door's dark armor, glowing red visors. No mercy. A brutal battle began. Kyra fought with speed and skill, cutting down enemies with smooth, fast strikes. Drelk fired blast after blast, even after being hit in the shoulder. But there were too many. A grenade flew toward Elias. He ducked hand. Kyra dove in front of him, deflecting it with her blade. You okay? She shouted. I'm almost done. Screen flashed red, then green. System shutdown initiated. The sphere in the center pulsed them. Faded. The weapon was dead, but the battle wasn't over. One final enemy charged at them. Massive Jarari soldier in black armor with a flaming sword. He was a commander. His armor bore the mark of the Crimson Accord. He roared and swung at Elias. Kyra blocked the blow, was thrown aside. The commander raised his blade. Elias drew his pistol and fired point blank. The blast hit the commander. In the neck, he staggered, then fell silence. The room was in ruins. Smoke filled the air, but the weapon was offline. Project Charon was no longer a threat. Elias helped Kira to her feet. You all right? He asked. She smiled through bruised lips. I've had worse. Drelk limped over. We won for now. Elias looked at the deactivated weapon. Need to bury this place forever. I'll make sure of it, Kiara said. My people need peace, not power. Elias nodded. Then your father was right? About what? That you were better than him? Kyra smiled. For the first time, it reached her eyes. Snow fell quietly over the mountains of Garari Prime. White clouds curled around sharp peaks, and the world seemed peaceful. But beneath that calm surface, chaos was building. Inside a small command base carved into the mountain, Elias Rain sat at a metal table with a warm drink in his hand. He was tired, his muscles ached, and his mind raced. They had just shut down Project Chirona, a weapon that could have ended entire worlds. But peace was not guaranteed. Not yet. Kiara entered. The room, dressed in clean armor and a black cloak marked with her family crest. She had barely slept, but her eyes were clear, focused, strong. The Loyalist forces are spreading the message, she said. We're calling it a victory against extremists. Elias raised an eyebrow. That's all this is to them? Cleanup? Mission. We can't tell the public about Project Charon, she said firmly. They would panic. Worse, others might come looking for it. He understood. Fear spreads fast, especially when weapons like Chiron were involved. What about the Crimson Accord? He asked. They lost many soldiers in the attack. They're not finished. Kiara paused. And they're not the only threat anymore. Elias sat up straighter. Explain. Kiara hesitated. Then she activated a small device on the table. A hologram appeared. Security footage from one of the tunnels showed a figure sneaking away during the battle. A loyalist. One of their own. That's Commander Drelk's, second in command, she said. Terrison, he was sending a signal off-world during the attack. Elias narrowed his eyes. He betrayed us, but the signal was coded in an old human. Encryption format? Military grade. Elias stood slowly, and someone on my side may be involved. Later that day, Elias and Kira met with Drelk in a private room. He was angry, hurt, betrayed. Terrison fought beside me for 10 years, Drelk growled. He was like a brother. I know how it feels, Elias said quietly. I've had officers I trusted turn on me too. It's worse than any wound. We think he sent coordinates to someone off-world, Kiara said. Someone powerful, possibly even a faction on Earth? Elias rubbed his chin. Not everyone back home wanted peace. Some saw the treaty as weakness. And now they might be coming here, Kira added. There was a long silence. Then Drelk spoke, voice cold. Tell me what you need. By nightfall, Elias and Kyra were back aboard the stealth ship, flying low through the planet's upper atmosphere. Their goal, intercept the source of the signal and follow the trail. The transmission had bounced through multiple satellites before disappearing. But Elias had cracked the code. It ended at an abandoned mining outpost on the far side. Of the planet? Do you think this is a trap? Kyra asked. Absolutely, Elias replied. But we walk into it anyway. The outpost was silent when they arrived. Wind blew through broken towers. Old machines lay scattered like fallen giants. It had been abandoned since the early war. Days when the mines collapsed. But someone had powered it up again. Elias moved first. Pulse rifle in hand, scanning every corner. Kyra followed, blade drawn. They found a trail of fresh footprints in the snow, leading toward the central control tower. Inside, they found the transmitter, and something else. A body Terrison, dead, shot in the back. Kiora knelt beside him, eyes dark. He never got out. Whoever used him. They tied up loose ends. Elias walked to the console. The screen was still glowing. He typed in a few commands. A message appeared in plain English. The Crimson Accord failed. We won't. Operation. Reclaimer begins now. SDC. Kiara leaned in. SDC. Elias's face went pale. That's not Jirari. It's human. Back at the Loyalist camp, Elias locked himself in a cum room and called an old contact, Commander Mira Lane, a retired officer from Earth who had once been his closest ally during the war. Her face appeared on the screen, lined with age, but sharp as ever. I figured you'd call Rain, she said. You know about Operation Reclaimer? He asked directly. She hesitated. But that was answer enough. It was supposed to be shut down after the treaty, Elias said. Black Ops. Unapproved missions. Weapons research. I know, Myra said. But some people still want control. Over the Jirari systems. They think peace is a temporary pause, not the future. They're planning to land forces, Elias said. They want Chiron, or what's left of it. You have to stop them, Mira said quietly. Try to slow the operation from here, but be careful. This time, you're not just fighting aliens, you're fighting humans too. Kiara wasn't surprised when Elias told her. She sat by the fire that night, sharpening her blade. Your people and mine are more alike than we thought, she said. Always chasing power, always afraid of peace. Not all of us, Elias replied. Some of us want better. She looked at him. Then help me prove it. He nodded. What's the plan? They returned to the site of Project Chiron the next day with explosives. The weapon was offline. That wasn't enough. They had to destroy every part of it. The core, the software, the machines. Even the walls. It took 12 hours. Drelk's soldiers worked in silence. Kiara directed them, fierce and focused. Elias handled the detonation code. As they placed the final charge, he turned to her. When this is gone, we lose leverage, he said. No second chances. That's the point, she replied. Peace can't exist with shadows like this. He smiled. For the first time, he believed it could work. The explosion shook the mountain. A pillar of fire and ash rose into the sky. Chiron was gone. Forever, but as they watched from a safe distance, Kyra's communicator buzzed. She answered and her face turned pale. What is it? Elias asked. They've already landed, she said. A small human fleet just dropped. Outside the capital, they're flying Earth banners, but they didn't speak to the High Council. No warning, no request. Elias's jaw tightened. They're moving faster than I thought. Drelk stepped beside them. Do we fight? Elias looked at Kira. She nodded, double quotes, yes, but we do it smart. At night in a hidden command room, Elias gathered the loyalist leaders, Kira and Drelk. We need to split them, he said. Divide the rogue Earth forces from the Crimson Accord, make them fight each other, then strike when they're weak, Drelk added. Kiara stood. I'll go to the High Council and tell them the truth. Expose this invasion, and it'll push neutral cities to our side. Elias raised a hand. And I'll send a message to Earth. Publicly, if we catch one of their commanders alive, we make them talk. Broadcast it. War by words, Drelk said. War by proof, Elias corrected. As the plan formed, the fires of war sparked once again across the stars, but this time, the lines were blurred. The enemies were not just aliens, they were also those who wore the same uniform. Garari Prime was burning again, not the fire of destruction, but the fire of conflict. Armored dropships had landed outside the capital. Strange banners flew above makeshift camps, flags of rogue. Earth factions and mercenaries who claimed to act for the safety of the galaxy. But Elias Rain knew better. They weren't here to help. They were here to take. Kyra stood on the balcony of the mountain stronghold, watching the horizon. Dark smoke rose in the distance, carried by the cold wind. Her cloak flapped around her, tall figure, and her face was hard with focus. They've already taken 3 outposts, she said. Minimal resistance. They're not killing civilians. Yet. That's how it starts, Elias replied beside her. They want to show power without blood. But the moment someone says no, it will turn ugly. Kiara nodded. Then we'll say no. Loudly. Elias turned to her. We need something more than a fight. Something final. Something true. We make them show their face, she said. 3 hours later, the plan was in motion. Drelk and his loyalist squad had captured a rogue Earth commander in a surprise raid. The prisoner, a middle-aged man with silver hair and cold blue eyes, was taken to a secured bunker. Elias stared at him through the one-way glass. He recognized the man instantly. Colonel Morgan Velt, Elias muttered. Last seen commanding the 7th Black Division. He disappeared after the war ended. Kyra stood. Beside him, your people erased him. Some probably helped him vanish, Elias replied. People like him didn't want peace. They just wanted a break before the next war. Now they had returned for round 2. Inside the interrogation room, Colonel Velt sat in silence. His wrists were chained to the table. His uniform was clean, unmarked, his face calm. Cold. Elias entered the room alone. Colonel Elias said, "You've caused quite a mess." "I'm cleaning up yours," Velt replied calmly. "You were supposed to finish them off, not make friends with the enemy. You're fighting a war that ended years ago." "No," Velt said, leaning forward. "You signed papers. But real warriors never surrender. We just wait." Elias shook his head. "You're not a warrior. You're a scavenger." Velt smiled. "And what are you? Pet of an alien princess?" Elias stepped closer, voice low. "You're going to confess. On record. We'll broadcast it across every city, both human and Jirari. You'll admit who sent you, why you came, and what you were promised." "I won't say a word," Velt said. Elias tapped his wrist console. The wall behind him blinked on the glass, became transparent. Kiara stood on the other side, watching. Then she stepped forward, holding a small chip. "This," she said, sliding it into the display, "is your mission briefing, uncoded, with your voice." The screen came alive. "Target Project Chiron. Secure or destroy alien command structures. Frame operation as peacekeeping. No negotiation." Colonel Velt went pale. "You see," Elias said, "we don't need your confession. We just need your face." Within the hour, the footage was sent across Girari Prime. Screens in every city showed the truth. The rogue humans were not allies. They were invaders, manipulators, thieves, and something else happened. Earth responded. Official broadcasts from Earth's High Council appeared online, publicly disowning Velt's forces. They promised no further involvement and confirmed that Elias Rain was acting as a peace ambassador, not a soldier. That changed everything. Girari leaders who had remained silent suddenly began to speak up. Some offered support to Kira and the Loyalists. They sent supplies. Few even offered soldiers. The planet was waking up. The Crimson Accord, sensing weakness, made a final move. 3 nights later, Accord launched a full assault on the capital. Thousands of soldiers in dark red armor marched through the snow, backed by war machines and battle cruisers. But this time, they were not alone. Kiara and her loyalist forces stood ready in the city's defense towers. Drelk commanded the heavy artillery units from the rooftops. Elias led a guerrilla strike team through the sewers. Their goal, take out the enemy's command corps. Kiara's voice came over the radio. "They're breaking through Sector 5. We need that command tent destroyed, Elias." "We're moving," he replied. His team moved through tunnels filled with steam and ice. Explosions rumbled above their heads. The war was no longer theoretical, it was here, alive. Tearing through stone and steel, Elias reached the access point and planted charges on the tunnel. "Roof," he gave the signal. The floor above them blew open, and they stormed upward, right into the heart of the Crimson Accord's field camp. It was chaos. Grenades flew. Blaster fire cut the air. One of Elias's men went down. Another threw a smoke bomb, and then Elias saw him. The Crimson Accord warlord tall. It's armored in crimson and black, with glowing red eyes and a curved blade. "General Tharn," Elias muttered. He'd heard of him? A zealot. A believer in Jirari supremacy. Elias charged. The fight was brutal, steel against blade, rifle against claw. Tharn moved fast, fueled by rage, but Elias was faster, smarter, and this time he wasn't alone. Kira burst into the tent moments later, blade drawn. Together, they fought Tharn back, strike by strike. Finally, Elias delivered the killing shot straight. To the warlord's heart, Tharn collapsed. The Accord forces saw their leader fall and began to retreat. The war ended not with a bang. With a silence, one by one, the invading factions pulled back. The Rogue Earth units surrendered, the Crimson Accord fractured, and the Loyalists secured every major city. Jirari Prime stood free once again, but more importantly, stood united. A week later, Kyra stood before the High Council. She wore ceremonial armor and a cloak made of her family's crest. Her speech was simple. The time of empires and vengeance is over. We do not need a throne. We need a voice, together, with our human allies, with the past behind us. The chamber erupted in approval, for the first time in generations. Gerari Prime chose democracy over dominance, and the first ambassador from Earth, Elias reigned. That night, under the twin moons, Elias stood on a quiet balcony, watching the stars. His uniform was plain, his body still sore, but his heart lighter. Kyara joined him, holding 2 cups of warm root tea. "You know," she said, "my father never told me why he trusted you." Elias smiled. "Because I let him go." She looked surprised. "I had the chance to kill him once," he said, "back when the war was ending. Da-da-da-da-da-da. But I saw something in his eyes. Regret. Maybe even hope. So I spared him." Kiara looked away. "He never spoke of that." "He didn't need to," Elias replied. "He sent you instead." They stood together in silence, watching a new day rise over a world reborn.